Welcome to the SwimSwam Breakdown. As always, I'm your host, Coleman Hodges, coming to you from the Midwest today. I'm in Columbia, Missouri, in my hometown, and you got it. That means we've got practice and pancakes from the University of Missouri coming up. We're also taking a trip down to Springfield, Missouri. You may not have heard of it, but you have heard of Drury University, where resident sprint savant Karol Ostrowski, who just entered the transfer portal, we're going to see a workout from him later this week. We'll talk about his transfer a bit later. We are joined today by SwimSwam Associate Editor Tori Hart from downtown sunny Oakland, California, and SwimSwam numbers expert Barry Revson from Chicago, Illinois. Barry, Tori, how's your weekend? You guys do anything fun?
Weekend was great, super relaxing, other than some work going on in my apartment, which is why I'm here at my parents' house in my childhood bedroom. But it's now an office, which with much nicer podcasting gear than I have at my place. So when in Rome, break out the headset.
I dig the new look. Barry?
Yeah, mine was great.
Report?
I got to fly to New York, got to see one of my oldest friends get married. It was a beautiful venue. Couldn't ask for anything more than that.
That's amazing. I'm also home for a wedding. So it was a weekend of love, a weekend of swimming.
The season. Yeah.
And so let's get into some news. First off, we saw the 2021 short course European Championships wrap up. Bit of an odd meet just because there were obviously some fast swims, but I feel like only half of Europe was there because of ISL and because of short course worlds and other things. So it was kind of weird just in terms of players, but we did see 4 world records go down. Ilya Shymanovich in the 50 breast, Szebasztian Szabo in the 50 fly, both tied the current world records, while the Dutch team in the mixed 200 medley relay and the Italian men in the 200 medley relay both cracked new world records there. Of the 4 world records we saw in Kazan, which impressed you all the most? Tori, let's start with you.
For me, it was definitely that 50 breast record from Shymanovich. That was a record that stood since 2009, a Cameron Vanderburg record, one of the older ones on the books here. And to me, the relays, not much to call home about. I mean, we don't see those swum that often, so not that unusual to see a world record there, but absolutely that 12-year-old record from Shymanovich getting broken. It's good stuff.
Barry, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely with Tori there. I think the individual records, even though they were just tied, are much more impressive. I mean, these are events that are swum all the time, especially now that we have ISL. I mean, the ISL has the relays, but they're all 400 relays. We don't have the 200 relays there. And so, I mean, it's especially been pretty exciting with the 50 fly, seeing how many times Santos and Szabo have gone 21.8, 21.8. So finally seeing Szabo hit that time, and then maybe being able to see both of them do it again in the playoffs and see what happens. And same with we've had the 3 breaststrokers going like 25.2, 25.3 all over the place. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty exciting to finally see that time go down.
Look, I hear you. Especially the Vanderburg record, it was impressive, but for me, it was the Italian record all the way. It was the men's Italian team. As you guys have said, we've seen these 50s swum a lot more. We've seen Szabo and Ilya both, become sprint maestros in their respective 50 events. And so I feel like this was just a matter of time before these records went down. Whereas this Italian men's team, with Nicolo, who's had an amazing season already, Marco Orsi, who's kind of just this like sprint wild card, who can do it all if it's 100 or less. And then Lorenzo Zazzeri just popped out of nowhere, splits 20.2, one of the fastest splits in history, to nab this, what was a Russian world record, who Kolesnikov was on that relay, Morozov, Kirill Prigoda. I mean, that was a legit relay. And to see these young guys kind of get it, I was most impressed by that. But that was short course Euros in a nutshell. Those were the highlight swims. Moving on to the real meat and potatoes of this show today. The ISL playoffs are starting this weekend in Eindhoven. And now we know we also have the ISL final the following weekend after the playoffs conclude, also in Eindhoven. So first of all of the ISL teams are short-staffed. No team will be bringing a full roster of 32 athletes. Every team is leaving players behind, or rather, some players will not be joining. First of all, Barry, how do you think this will affect the battle for that fourth spot? We're assuming London Energy and Cali are kind of locks for the ISL final, but Toronto and LA really look like they both have a good shot. What are you seeing for them in terms of their not totally full rosters and how that affects their chances for the final?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think that's going to be like a big story over the next month is who's there and who's not there. I mean, I know LA is getting Ryan Murphy and Christian Golomeyev back. That's huge for them. I mean, they really missed out on that. I don't know how much of a lock London is necessarily, but the fact that, I mean, we know for sure they're getting Pagoda back, and that's huge because they've been so weak in the men's breaststroke side of things, and it's not clear if Peaty is coming back. That would obviously also fill in that gap pretty well. And yeah, like I don't really know how that's going to play out. I think it's kind of unfortunate that we just don't get to see everyone compete. And we know like the Campbell sisters probably aren't going to be there either for London, and that's a huge name to kind of continue to miss. So I don't know. Obviously, Cali gets Flickinger back. That's huge. As if they needed any more firepower, they get one of the top scorers back from last season. Energy is also kind of totally OP, so whoever shows up for them is probably going to be sufficient. But I think it's probably LA, Toronto, London for those third and fourth spots, and then we'll see what the other teams can throw down.
And just to recap, just in case any of our listeners aren't avid Strictly Come Dancing fans like ourselves, Adam Peaty was at long last eliminated from the show. Unclear exactly when he's planning to return to the pool. He has said he is, but we don't have confirmation from the team that he will in fact show up for the playoffs. So that's where the speculation is coming from here.
A complete travesty of dancing. I thought he was going to win it all. We've discussed it many times, but alas, his journey on Strictly Come Dancing has come to an end, which is very sad. We're going to get to if we think he will show up for the ISL playoffs in a bit. But for the players that we've seen throughout the regular season, or at least parts of it, what are you guys most excited to see? What matchups are you looking forward to come these ISL playoffs, especially after World Cup, after short course Euros?
I mean, for me, for sure, it's that 100 free. I mean, after Chalmers got close a couple of times, then finally threw down that 44.8. I mean, there is no race I'm more looking forward to than seeing that happen a few more times. I don't remember what the schedule is off the top of my head, or if London and Cali actually meet lots of times or meet never. It's kind of a weird setup with the round robin, but not really aspect of the schedule. So I'm hoping we get to see that lineup more times than never.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I said last week, I think ISL should just go full pay-per-view with Chalmers versus Dressel, just set him up, especially with this added twist that Caleb appears to have gotten a full leg sleeve tattoo in the downtime since the regular season ended. May or may not have spent a little bit of time out of the water. Who knows? Maybe he gets his superpowers from the tattoos. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, that's the obvious headliner. I think, if Peaty does show up, Shymanovich versus Peaty could be the new marquee matchup with a new world record holder in the house. But yeah, hard to overlook Chalmers versus Dressel.
And kind of like a less of a marquee matchup, since neither of these teams are necessarily going to make the final, is I do want to see the Szabo versus Santos in the 50 fly, now that they're the co-world record holders. And they're both so far ahead of everyone else, even in the field, that would be also like a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, with Szabo on the Centurions, Santos on Team Iron. Is that right?
Yeah.
Do you guys see any of those kind of second tier teams making noise in these playoffs? I mean, what are you predicting from DC, from Aqua, from Iron?
I mean, I think we'll see some good swims from a lot of the teams. I mean, I think the teams, they don't really have the depth to compete with some of the top teams, but they still have the stars. I mean, we'll still see We'll still see like a great 400 IM from Bailey Anderson from DC. We'll still see like individual, very like highlight reel kind of performances. But like I don't see DC or Aqua or Iron really being very competitive for that final spot. I mean, Aqua had some like very good matchups over the course of the season. But now that especially it I think could have been a lot more interesting with LA if like Ryan Murphy and Golomey didn't show up. But now that they have those extra people, I don't think that Aqua is quite there.
For me, I think at this point for those teams, I'm looking less at where will they place in the ISL and more at some of the larger storylines around members of their team. I think a good example would be Katinka Hosu listed on Iron's roster, but as we know, she didn't compete in the regular season, though she was generally around the team. And I think just as far as the narrative of the career of one of the biggest names in the sports history goes, I'm just curious to see does she show up and in what form does she show up in if she does so.
I hope she swims. And I always love watching her swim. So I hope to see her there for, if nothing other than purely selfish reasons.
It'd be great to see Katinka swim. We have so many like greatest of all time level athletes on the female side. I'm super stoked to see McKeon, Sjostrom, Renomi go at it in the 50 and 100 free, especially because you have the two. Well, I got Kate Campbell, world record holder in the 100, won't be there. But Renomi has it in the 50. Sjostrom obviously has put up some of the fastest times in history. McKeon is on a total tear. So I think those will be really great races to watch as well. And again, getting to see them compete back to back to back so many times. Do you think, I want to play hypotheticals. What would it take for DC, Iron, or Aqua to make the ISL final? To be one of the top 4 teams? What would it take for any of those teams? Barry, I know you know the answer to this for DC, so maybe we start there. What would it take for DC to make the ISL final?
Yeah, so the way that swimming differs, I think, in a lot of other sports is that there's just not as much randomness, right? Like if you have I see the Oakland A's banner hanging behind Tori. The worst team in baseball is going to beat the best team in baseball some percentage of the time. I don't know what that is because I'm not a baseball fan, but I imagine it's at least 20. There's just like a lot of inherent noise, but in swimming, the faster person is going to win the race like 99% of the time. And then if you add on to that the fact that we have 39 events, which does a lot to significantly reduce the variance. Even if there really was much variance to begin with. So there just isn't a lot of room in this environment for like a weaker team to be competitive against a stronger team. And so what would it take for like a team like DC to make the playoffs? I think if everyone swam a best time in every event, pretty much, I think we need like that kind of caliber of performance from them. And even that might not even be sufficient. I mean, there's a lot of events that they have people that are very competitive. Like, if Andreas Vazais just blows up, like we've seen him do time and time again. And then they put him in like 5 more events than usual, like something like that. But with the rosters that we have on the teams, like I don't think there's any chance. Sorry, DC.
Fair enough. Do you see Aqua or Iron even having the slimmest of margin of getting past LA, London, or LA, London, and Toronto, 2 of those 3?
I think Aqua does actually have like a slim chance, probably. They have enough firepower that if they're really on in their top events, they can get those like huge jackpot points, right? Like especially in the breaststrokes, and if for some reason they get really lucky and the skins end up being breaststroke, for instance, if no one's paying any attention at all to the picks at the end and they kind of luck into that, that could help them a lot because they have that opportunity to score like all those points, right? Like if Szabo comes in and scores like 37 points in the 50 fly, like he's certainly capable of doing. And Martinenghi does the same thing, and Karol does the same thing, and they have enough events that they can get these huge swingy points. And kind of try to survive in the rest, that there's probably like a small chance that they could do it. I don't think it's likely, but it's at least feasible.
I hear the pain in your voice, just trying to make a case for them there.
It could happen. It could happen.
I feel like that would be the best thing from a fan's perspective to see, would be one of those bottom 3 teams, somehow just go on a tear and, sneak into that final. Again, Iron probably has a exceedingly slim chance of that, but like with so many Dutch athletes on their team, with Tom de Boer and Renomi, it's like I feel like they might get a little home crowd advantage, kind of like we saw Aqua have at times, and really, really go off. But again, it is a playoff situation where it's like it's not just one match like the play-in, right? You have to have kind of that sustained success.
I mean, I was at that first match this season, and the crowd was definitely an Aqua crowd. I mean, that was just pretty cool to see that kind of environment at a swim meet. And Renomi talked a lot about how excited she was to have the playoffs in her hometown. So maybe she takes the opportunity to really just throw down. That would be very cool to see.
I'm all about it. I guess we'll see. What we won't see is SwimSwam's 2021 all eliminated ISL team. We wrote this article. It was the top swimmers missing from the playoffs. Obviously, it includes athletes from the Tokyo Frog Kings and New York Breakers. Who are you most bummed about not seeing in these 2021 ISL playoffs, Tori?
Dia Seto's the clear pick. I mean, I was there at the 2018 final when he set his world record there. It was electric. He's training out here in the US now with Georgia, which, could be a result of the fact that he's not swimming in the ISL anymore, but just a lot of interesting stuff going on with this guy, with his career. He was the highest ranked swimmer, I believe, in MVP standings. So I think he did have an extra match there to rack up those points. But I mean, that's the clear answer on the men's side, in my opinion. On the women's side, I believe the top ranked swimmer to miss out would be Abby Wood, who is 6th overall in MVP standings. And, obviously I don't have the personal connection of watching her race there, but that's a high ranked pick to be missing out. And with that, I pose a potential rule change in the ISL, given their flexibility generally around who's on the roster and when they have to swim. Do we think it's feasible in coming years that there could be a draft of the all eliminated team ahead of the playoffs? So for example, does the worst ranked team in the regular season get to come out and find a way to draft Dia Seto onto their playoff squad at this point? Anyone else think that would be exciting?
I feel like with what we've seen, what will end up happening if that rule ever gets adopted is that Dia Seto somehow ends up on Cali or Energy Standard again. Because or Abby Wood goes to Cali, or maybe London. I guess London would be an appropriate place for her. We've kind of seen these sorts of shenanigans play out. But yeah, I mean, it's always going to be sad in the playoffs where we don't see these people. I mean, I'm sure Rowdy Gaines is especially crushed that Abby Wood is staying home. And we got to see in the play-in match a great 400 IM between her and Anderson. And Yuya Hashi, right? They were all in that race, and that's always great to see, right? You want the top people to compete, but that's just the way the playoffs work. Someone's got to stay home.
I feel like this would be such an ISL rule.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, it's obviously absurd, but so is most of your team sitting out the season and then coming back for the playoffs. So
it's just absurd enough to get their attention, I think.
I feel like if I'm DC Trident and I can find a way for Dia Seto to join my team to swim, just a 400 IM or something, I should automatically win the league or something, some wild outcome.
Yeah, I mean, it would. I feel like the teams obviously wouldn't like it who aren't benefiting us, right? Like the top teams would be like, what? But probably the GMs and coaches too. But from a fan's perspective, it's like, yeah, let's just get wild. And then we get to see, the best athletes swim more. So
I mean, probably slightly less outrageous would simply to have like an all home team, right? So not put them on other teams, but rather put them each on their own team and have like a all-star weekend kind of thing, where we can do, something to that effect.
That would be pretty great. Like no, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. But yeah, I mean, I think we'll definitely miss some of these swimmers. It would have been great. Would have been great to see David Popovich get to swim in the ISL after he was drafted by the New York Breakers. And I think he had said he would go swim for the playoffs if his team made it. And then obviously they didn't. Just won his first big senior level title at short course Euros in the 200 free, went 142. That was exciting for him, but alas, we'll have to wait till some other meet, which I assume is short course Worlds. But moving on, our last big topic of the day is Karol Ostrowski, as we mentioned, from Drury University in Springfield, Missouri. D2 school. He's entered the transfer portal. Our Braden Keith, our editor, mentioned this might be the fastest man to ever enter the NCAA transfer portal. He's got yards bests of 18.92 in the 50 and 41.25 in the 100 free. He's also got a 133.2 in the 200 free, so not too shabby there. Tori, if in an ideal world, where do you see him landing, or what do you think might be a good landing spot for Karol?
I feel deep in my soul that this guy's going to end up at Cal. They lost Ryan Hoffer. They previously went out and got Hugo Gonzalez in a similar situation. They're needing a little boost to take on Texas. I feel like it's happening. They had, sorry if I'm butchering this name, but Paul Sendik in previous years, also of Poland, also did extremely well at Cal. So there's some kind of connection there. I saw commenters throwing out NC State because they also have a few Polish guys, totally reasonable as well. I just have that feeling. I think Dave Durden's on this. I think we're going to see him in Berkeley, provided that the academics are reasonably there.
Who is that other? Didn't Cal previously also acquire like a D2, the really top D2 flyer? His name's also escaping me at the moment.
Matthew Josa.
Yeah. So they've.
Yep. Good call.
He swam at Queens. Basically through Olympic trials, I think he was still able to work with David Marsh, who was his club coach, and in some way, he was still in Charlotte during that time period. And then after Olympic trials in 2016, went to Cal for 2 years, and then trained there post-grad also as well. But yeah, certainly had some success there with them. I feel like NC State would be a good spot just because they're high energy, but I would love so much for him to go to like a Tennessee or like, so like, maybe not Arizona State, nothing against, but like they kind of have some name recognition, but just like a top 10 to 20 school that's like, you wouldn't expect it at all and kind of throws everyone for a loop. And for whatever reason, he finds success there and maybe puts some other program on the map that could really use a boost. But that's pure speculation. I don't know where he's going. I feel like Cal is a really good guess.
This is when we turn on Google alerts, because I believe when it was Hugo in the transfer portal and we didn't know where he was going, I think it was a Spanish outlet that actually broke the rumors, which was fun. So time to do some Google alerts.
Dude, seriously. So we'll see where Karol ends up. I'm gonna be in Springfield this week to do a practice with Karol and the rest of the Drury team. So stay tuned for that. And with that, it is time to play our favorite game show on the SwimSwam Breakdown, Sink or Swim. First up on Sink or Swim this week, Beryl Gastaldello, an ISL star who for the LA Current will be competing in the ISL playoffs, announced she will now be training with Coley Stickels. Don't know where, because we don't know if Coley's has a coaching job. He was with the Tokyo Frog Kings. They're now no longer in the playoffs. So we don't know what Coley's deal is yet. Do we think that this will last until Beryl's home Olympics in Paris in 2024?
I'm going to swim this. Like you said, we don't know a lot about the situation. That face is really throwing me off, but we don't know a lot about the situation, but my guess, knowing absolutely nothing, is that Coley is setting up some kind of pro hub somewhere. I doubt it's just Beryl and Coley at, their local YMCA. Like he probably has something in the works. We don't know what that is. It can't be as random as it feels, is my gut instinct. They might have a connection, something we don't know. And because of that, I'm going to swim it. It just feels too random to truly be that random, if you know what I mean.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's a good argument. What do you think, Barry?
Yeah, I mean, I'd swim it. Her season 2 ISL was just, she was a total star. And this season has not quite been up to that level. And so maybe this is just like a change of pace that she needs. She's the second person to leave that group after Casas, and so maybe this is what she needs, and it'll work out for her. And what do I know? Nothing really.
I'm sinking it. I don't think there's any way this last 3 years. I feel like Coley has had too bumpy of a ride with his leaving Indiana, his departure from Alabama. We don't know what's going on. I don't think it'll last 3 years, but we'll see. And we don't know anything more than that. I hope I get to do a practice in pancakes with them. I would love to see what they're up to. But especially with his latest pro group at Alabama kind of disbanding and everyone else going in their separate directions, I don't see it. But again, shortened Olympic cycle, who's to say? It's like 2.5 years at this point. So, all right. We talked about Adam Peaty getting kicked off the dance show. His dance shoes are retired. Will he come back for the ISL playoffs?
I'm swimming it mostly just out of pure intrigue about what this did to his training. If going on celebrity dance shows is now a new post-Olympics tactic that other swimmers might, follow suit in. I feel like it would be bad for his brand to not show up too. It just, he's all about that. As his new book is called, The Gladiator Mindset. You got to persevere, show up to swim when your team needs you. He could be the difference maybe between them advancing to the final and not, as we previously discussed. So I think it would be good for his career, good for the team, good for him overall, just to show up. And I think it will happen.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta swim him showing up. I mean, he's got a lion tattoo. I mean, if that is not if he is not like the representative of the London Roar, then I don't know who would be. And I think if he doesn't show, that's kind of like a weird move. It doesn't even matter to what extent like he's in shape or not. They clearly need a breaststroker, and he is so far ahead of what they have right now when he's in shape that I got to imagine that even if he hasn't stepped into the pool in a month, he's probably still their best option there. So yeah, I got to swim it. I would be disappointed if he didn't show up.
I feel like whatever shape he's in, he could probably poop out a top 300 breast, 50 breast, whenever. I'm swimming it, and I think solely because he's going to go so he can promote his book, The Gladiator Mindset, as Tori alluded to, that just came out. I think he's doing that so that he'll get his name back out there and people will buy his book. That's what I think. Moving on, we saw Texas and Virginia go head to head, men's and women's teams, which I feel like is one of the first times maybe ever we've seen the defending men and women teams battle like at the same meet, which I thought was super cool. I guess maybe the year Arizona men and women both won the year after, I guess that would have happened a lot for them. But anyway, so we saw some really fast times at dual meet. Do we think Texas men after this weekend will repeat as NCAA champions?
How can we not at this point is kind of where I'm at. I mean, Carson Foster drops a 440.5-ish 400, or sorry, 340.5-ish 400 IM. I mean, what? We have nothing to prove right now that they're not going to win. I think they've shown all signs that they're back in full force. Carson may be a little hungry after missing out on the Olympic team. Not that one dude can, carry the entire team, but just how can we vote against that right now?
Barry, what are you thinking? Texas men repeating as NCAA champs?
Yeah, I feel like it's almost boring just to say yes because I don't know what else you can say. But maybe Karol Ostrowski goes to Cal, and then the Cal men can do something much more interesting. But for now, I don't know how you could bet against them. They just seem so far ahead of everyone else.
I'm betting against them. I think Cal can do it. To me, and this is not based on numbers, so it could be drastically wrong. I think Texas has a lot of good top end. I don't think they have quite the depth that Cal will at NCAAs. I think Cal has some sleepers that could really show up, like a Jack Alexi, who is on the national team, dropped a 48 long course 100 free. He's a freshman. He's still getting his legs under him. Cal doesn't usually swim super fast in season. Neither does Texas, but now this year, apparently they are. But I think Texas's top times are overshadowing the fact that their depth isn't going to be quite as deep as Cal's, but that could be wrong. Luckily, we're going to get to see them both swim suited up at the Minnesota Invite. So we'll have some good data points from that one. And same question for the women. Do we see UVA repeating as the women's champions this season, especially after, pretty convincing win over the Texas women who were third last year?
Yeah, I think the Virginia women and the Texas men are in a pretty similar situation after this weekend, where it's like, somebody give me a reason why not to swim them winning again. I mean, the 1-2 punch of Emma Wyatt, Gretchen Walsh, pretty incredible. And that's not even really scratching the surface of all of the big names they have over there right now. Some incredible times this weekend, like the Texas men. Yeah, Stanford is, on notice now to put up some times, but they might not care at this point in the season.
Yeah, I mean, Texas women look great too. So maybe this is where they start turning the corner, and maybe we'll see a much more competitive Texas women come around this season, and maybe Stanford also does something more interesting. But yeah, I mean, UVA look great. Yeah, I'm just gonna be boring and go for the repeat on both sides.
I can't fault you that much, but I'm sinking again. I do think that we know Virginia swims hecka fast in season. That is like their thing. They swim hecka fast in taper meets too, but they go out front and stay out front. The most surprising part about like team battles to me this weekend was that it was a 2-day dual meet, and after day one, I think Virginia women had the lead over Texas women by a point, which was shocking to me. The Texas women were that close. On day two, Virginia pulled away. They won the meet by a significant margin. But I didn't see that coming. I was like, okay. So Barry, like you said, like Texas women kind of seems like they're turning a corner. I think Stanford's Olympic talent is sleeping, and we're going to see them a little bit in Greensboro in a couple weeks as we see the UVA women. Like the UVA women can't go that much faster on paper. I guess in theory they can, but I think Stanford women are going to surprise a little. I think in NCAAs they're going to really pop out of their shells and get their title back from UVA. But that's just me. And with that, that's this week in swimming. Did we miss anything, guys? Do you have anything to contribute before we sign off today?
All I'm thinking is that you're on the clock to break this Ostrowski transfer news, Coleman. You're going to be there first. Now's your chance.
I'll have a deep chat with him. I knew this because I swam in high school with one of his coaches, and so I'm actually sleeping on his couch when I go down to Springfield. We're gonna have a powwow. So we'll see if I get any intel. I'll do my best. But so this is this week's news in swimming. Tune in every week to the SwimSwam Breakdown for your top news in swimming.